This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to The Express. Yes, this is Gary Allen. I'm glad to have you with us. And a special hello to Randy out there. I know you're listening. He's one of my faithful listeners every week. He's listening to this program, and all of you out there, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to be part of what's going on here. Tonight we have a very interesting guest for you. She'll be joining us in just a little bit. She's been with us before, Miss Fran Capo, one of the hardest working young ladies there is in show business. First of all, I just want to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. I know that's coming up this weekend, and all you ladies and gentlemen are waiting and hoping and having some great fun with Valentine's Day. Also, if you want to keep track of what's going on in my world, you go to Facebook, my Facebook page. It's Gary Allen, A-L-A-N. And if you want to hear some of the past shows, like this show will be up in just a couple of days on YouTube.com, Gary Allen, The Express. You might even have to put in the interviews. So nevertheless, just hang in there and, follow me and keep moving forward and help this program grow along with TMV Cafe. And I want to say a special hello to my producer back there in San Antonio, Texas. By the way, your Spurs are going to be here tomorrow night. I'm going to the game, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what they're doing against Miami right now, but I'm looking forward to that. EW, anything special for Valentine's Day between you and the missus and the move?
None at all. I'm just going to spend time with cardboard and dust.
Okay.
It sounds like my life right behind the gate post. And Fran, I know, is joining us, and she caught the end of that. What's happening, Fran, is that our radio station is being moved from one facility to the other, and EW is in charge of that. So for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be nothing more than cardboard box after cardboard box. And before you say anything, let me just go through this litany. You are one of my dearest friends in the whole world. She knows that very much so. Fran Capo is a motivational speaker, a comedian, adventurer, ordained minister. I didn't know that. 18-time author. We're going to talk about her book, which I love very, very much. She is one of the hardest working women in show business. She is one of the fastest talking women in show business. Between her and her fiance, I don't know who can get a word in edgewise. She's been on over 4,500 radio shows, 450 TV shows. This weekend on Valentine's Day, she's having an event, which we're going to get into. It's called Love, Light, and Laughter, presented by comedian Fran Capo and Jessica Lawrence. And I don't know where it's going to be, at the Albertson Memorial Church, which we will get to in Greenwich in just a little bit. But let me welcome one of the sweetest ladies, one of the most beautiful ladies, and one of the biggest hearts you're ever going to find in the world, my friend Fran Capo. Welcome, darling.
Hey, how are you? Boy, what a nice intro. Thank you.
Well, hey, listen.
How much did I pay you to do that now? Okay.
No, just between you and Jeanette, I don't know which one I love more. You or Jeanette?
Love us both.
Hey, listen, what can I tell you? Before we get into this, because a lot of my listeners are new to the Express, and thank you, Fran, for joining us. Let's get into a little bit about your life in show business and how it began. Were you always this precocious? Were you always this ambitious? And what made you gravitate towards comedy as a place where you wanted to land, along with all the other things that we're going to talk about tonight?
Well, the thing is, I was really lucky because my mom taught me that nothing is impossible. And my dad always taught me to find out the humor in life. So no matter what I did, I always had the thing where, well, if I do something and it works out really well, it can become part of my motivational speaking. And if it doesn't, it can become part of my stand-up comedy. So I figured, I had both ends of what I wanted to do covered. And as a kid, it's really funny because I remember because my mom mother kept drilling in me, nothing's impossible, nothing. Like, I remember one time when we were young, my sister and I went to the circus, and they had, like, people riding on top of each other's shoulders on a bicycle. And so I was like, when I got home, I was like, Sharon, get on my shoulders. Come on, we're going to do this. And I put her on my shoulders, and my mom looks out the window, and most mothers would be like, get down, don't do that. My mother was just, watch out for cars, So for us, it was like, okay, not a big deal. So everything that I would see that I wanted to do, I had this thought, well, if they could do it, I could do it. So, like, when I wanted to write, now I've written 18 books, but when I wanted to write a book, I would go into the library and I'd go, well, if all these people could write a book, I could write a book. And then if I would see somebody, running a marathon, I'm like, well, they got 2 legs. I have 2 legs. If they could run, I could run. So I never thought of anything as insurmountable. My thing was, you know what? You give it a try. You want to do it, you give it a try. I believe like everything is like life is like a buffet table. You try all the things you want to try, the good things, not, bad things. Try all the good things you want to try. And then at the end of it, when you wind up seeing God, you go, listen, you gave me a full life. I used up every bit of it.
Yeah. I was discussing this with someone the other night. I was at the basketball game when Magic were playing, and they were saying to me, Gary, you're 63 years old, and you don't look 63 years old. You look young. You act young. Is that just something that's with show business people? And I don't know if it's with show business people or not, but Fran, an awful lot of the people that are in our industry in one form or another, and for a while, I did a little stand-up. I'm not as successful as you by any stretch, but,
Not a contest.
No, it's not a contest, because if it was, I'd lose badly. But nevertheless, I mean, it seems like people in show business, we're willing to take risks that maybe other people are not willing to take in their lives. They take the safer road. So I think that in order to be in this business, because let's be honest, you and I both know a lot of people in this business who are just making out a meager living and just barely getting by, but they're happy with what they're doing. They may have some sad times. Do you think that that's part of what propels someone into show business? Is it, listen, I'm going to take a leap of faith here. Sink or swim, I'm going to get out there and try it. And I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try that, and I'm going to try a bunch of different things, and I'm not going to let any stone unturned. Do you think that's something that's a characteristic of an adventurer, or just somebody in our business in general?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a combination of anybody who wants to follow their dreams. I don't think it's necessarily just show business, although to get back to your answer about show business people looking young, I remember my mother said, well, think of it. If your life as a stand-up is making people laugh and surrounding yourself by laughing all the time, I mean, and, they say laughter is the best medicine, and that's not just a cliche. I mean, it's actually physically been proven that people who laugh have cured themselves, like Norman Cousins, Anatomy of an Illness, and a friend of mine, Sarah, runs an organization called Comedy Cures, and she cured herself of cancer, using the laughter method, right. And obviously, doing chemo and other stuff too, but basically having the positive attitude. And I think when any time you decide that you're going to go after your dreams or go after something like this, you got to keep coming up with different things. I remember one time we were Star Search was big at one point, and I remember thinking it was me and 2 friends of mine were like, oh, man, I'm going to get there. We were like, listen, they're having auditions out in Atlantic City. So literally, after our show in New York, we just decided to get into the car. And here it is, a white girl, a Chinese guy, and a black guy. We all take one room because we couldn't afford, like, a separate room. The lady at the desk is looking at us going, oh, what's going on here? And we went in there. And then from the room, we called upstairs pretending we were agents and that we were recommending ourselves to be seen. And we got upstairs to be screened. Right. And you just try like all these different things. But as an adventurer, I mean, I bungee cord jump, I scuba dive with sharks, and drive race cars. And people are like, "Why do you do these things?" I said, "Look, I could live a life that's real boring, and the thing is it's not everybody's cup of tea. This particular thing, I really get a kick out of doing these adventures because I really, I want to walk across that swaying bridge. I want to see what it feels like to eat fire. And so Some people choose the safer, more stable road, and you know what? That's fine. You know, they know when the next paycheck is coming in, and there's something very secure about knowing about that. Stand-ups, you know, don't know that. You could make, you know, $20,000 one day and then not work for the next 4 months. And they got to learn how to live off that money. Or, you know, make $500 a week if you work in a crew or whatever. But the point is, you live a happier life, I believe anyway, if you are following your dreams. Because at the end of it, you know, you wind up saying, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I went after my dream. And you always have that thing about wondering what would have happened had you given your dream a try. And I don't want to live that way.
Yeah, you know, I've often said that I think a lot of people who drink a lot, alcoholics, probably are sitting back and regretting what they could have done in their life, what they should have done, etc. But there's one thing that you've done, young lady, which you've done a number of things. By the way, Vicki Rossman says to say hello.
Oh, I love her. Well, hope she's listening, and say hello back in case she's sleeping. I'm going to listen later.
Well, okay. No, she stays up all night long. But there's one thing that you've done that I think only a few people on this earth have ever done. And, of course, we're going to get back to the showbiz stuff right away, but we're talking about your adventures.
Okay.
And that was to go down to the wreck of the Titanic.
Oh, my God, yeah. See, this is what I like about life, is if you have that attitude of just say yes and figure it out later. So here I am. I had done, I've written 18 books, okay? So when I had done one of the books, I was doing research on it. This was this adrenaline adventure book. And it was I was, researching this one particular chapter, which was about climbing, rock climbing. So I wanted to make sure the place was still in business before I started writing about it in my book. So I called the place, and I was like, listen, I just want to make sure you people still, were doing the rock climbing. And so then the guy says, oh, yeah, we do rock climbing. As a matter of fact, now we do mountain climbing. And I said, well, that's great, but I'm like, he goes, oh, well, have you ever thought of climbing? And then name some mountain that I had never heard of. And I'm like, listen, no offense, but if I'm going to climb a mountain, I'm not climbing like Mount Bob. I got to climb a mountain that I've heard of. And then he goes, oh, I have a friend who climbed, who led the IMAX movie team up Kilimanjaro. And so I was like, okay, well, that's great, but I'm calling you about the rock climbing. And he goes, no, you should think about it. So after I get off the phone, I look it up, and I find out that a 80-year-old woman climbed Kilimanjaro. And I'm like, well, damn, if an 80-year-old woman could do it, I could do it. Of course, I didn't realize she was in a wheelchair, got airlifted up there. But, it's like a minor detail. So there I am. I'm like, I get all excited, and I run into the room, and I go, Spencer, this is my son, Spencer, guess what we're going to do? We're going to climb Kilimanjaro. And he's like, Mom, I don't even like to walk. I'm like, you're missing the point that glaciers are going to melt by the year 2015. At the time, it was 2004. And he's like, Mom, we've got time. And I'm like, that's the wrong attitude. So we start training. We climbed Kilimanjaro. I did a book signing at the top of Kilimanjaro. Mm-hmm. And that picture circulates around the world. And out of the blue, I get an email from Brian Day O'Connor. And at that time, I didn't realize it was Sandra Day O'Connor's son. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I think it's fantastic. You take your kid up the mountain. P.S. I'm going down to Titanic. So I figured this guy emails me, what the heck? So I said, hey, any room for another person? And then he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, I didn't know people could go down to the Titanic. I thought it was only like the scientists and Cameron and stuff like that. And so I said, well, you have to get permission. So, I find out, what you need to get permission, mm-hmm. and there's requirements. And I'm like, okay, now there's 3 requirements. First requirement was that you can't have high blood pressure. I'm like, okay, not a problem. Second requirement was you couldn't be claustrophobic. So I said to them, well, what happens if you are? They said, well, you're in a 7-foot submersible, and you're 2.5 miles down at the bottom of the ocean. If you're claustrophobic and you lie and you don't tell us, we have to shoot you with a dart gun. I'm like, a dart gun? They're like, yeah, we can't have you, what are you, panic at the bottom of the sea? So I said, well, what's the third thing? They said, you can't have excessive flatulence. I'm like, what? I was like, wait mean? He goes, well, it's pure oxygen in there. He goes, if you fart too much, you could blow up the ship. I'm like, what? Can you imagine a headline? I said, that's not how I want to go out. Fast talker blows up Titanic, whatever, but so I'm like, well, I didn't, and then I'm thinking, well, I don't want to ask them what's too much. So I look it up on the web and I find out that the average person farts 18 times a day. So I start counting. When I got to 12, I figured I was safe, unless there's 6 more in my sleep I don't know about. So and there I am. So I think I'm going down. This is all true too. I think I'm going down with Brian Day O'Connor, and so at the last minute they switch my partner with this Japanese woman. Now I have nothing against Japanese women, Gary, but this lady literally was the most annoying woman on the planet. She's like this. I swear, the entire time. She's like, me number one Japanese to go down. Me number one Japanese. I'm like, all right, we get it. So there we are.
Fran, hold on one second. You know what this sounds like to me? A script from a Mel Brooks movie.
And this is my life. This is only one episode. So there we are. You got a picture, like you saw the movie The Titanic, so you saw that little submersible. Like I said, it's only 7.5 feet inside. So there I have, it's me, the New Yorker, the Russian pilot, because that's the guy that Anatoly Salgovich is the one that designed the mirrors, and he's the pilot. He's the one you see in all the Cameron movies, and the Japanese woman. So it's like the freaking United Nations going down to this thing. So there we are, 2.5 hours, spiraling down, and we get now all of a sudden down, and we see the Titanic, the bow of it right in front. And these tiny little windows we're looking out, they're only 6.5 inches because it can't be any bigger, because otherwise, the pressure of the ocean would cause the windows to break. So there we are. And I swear to you, she's like this. She goes like this. I need to take more picture. And he's getting all upset. He goes, you took 1,000 pictures of the bow. We need to move on. And she's like, no, I need to take more picture. And she goes, I have an idea. We need to back up. Take picture whole ship. He's like, no one ever take picture whole ship. Too big. She goes, no, we back up. He goes, I have better idea. Next time I put you outside submarine. And she's like, okay. I'm like, do you realize he wants to kill you? But this is true. And only 108 people have been down to the Titanic. More people have been to outer space. But, Gary, because I've done adventures all around the world, I have stories like this, crazy stories. Because when you do these crazy type of adventures, it's not just like, hey, I ate fire today. There's always something that comes with the story,
Yeah. And you have done so many wonderful things, though. I know Jeanette and I talked long before you and I ever met about some of the wonderful things you've done for other people, and some of the things that in your life itself. Has there ever been a time in your career, Fran, when you thought, "Okay, I just got off stage. That's it. I'm done. There is no tomorrow. I'm finished with show business. I got to go look for a 9-to-5 job."
No, I never thought I got to look for a 9-to-5 job. That would be the death to me. But there have been times where I'm about to go on stage and I'm like going, oh, I don't want to do this. And it's usually because, it's the second I step out on stage, I'm fine. But sometimes still, if I'm not familiar with the audience, like if it's an audience I know, which is like my general type audience, but if it's an audience that I'm not sure of, sometimes I'm like going, oh, God, what am I doing? I got to go out on that stage. I'm not sure these, or if I've heard the comic before and he or she's not doing well, then you're always like, it's going to be one of these nights. Right. But honestly, usually I have the philosophy, and my boyfriend or domestic partner that we are now, that's our new title, the DP. Okay. Yeah, and he always says to me, just go out there and have a good time. If you're having a good time, they'll have a good time. Yeah. And usually that's how it is. And honestly, I just say to the people when I'm nervous, like I did this I did this one show. It was the lady goes, all right, we need a comic. It's all seniors. I go, okay, well, how senior? Well, it's actually really senior. Well, how senior? Well, the people like 80 years old. But so when I pull up to the place, it was a polka. POLKA convention. And so I'm like, okay. So I figured, okay, I'm going to go there. If I don't do good, I'm not even going to mention my name. Well, as soon as I get there, it literally said, welcome, Fran. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. Now I got, I can't even hide who I am. They got this welcome sign. Lady comes up to me. She sounded like she was in the mob. She was like, oh, are you Fran? I'm like, oh, no, great. Now I'm going to get a hit done on me if I don't, she's 80 years old. I get there, and they're dancing before I got to go on. So it's not even like there's a warm-up, another comic, anything. They're just dancing. And in the middle of them dancing, these old people start throwing things at the band. They're throwing their paper cups at, I'm like going, oh my Lord, this is a wild audience. And then I go up to the guy, I go, all right, I'm going on after this song. And he goes, good luck, the comic last night died. And so I'm like going, what am I doing here? My name's on a banner. These people are dancing a polka. They're throwing stuff at the guy. So I went on the stage and I went, all right, listen, people, I just got to say something right up front. I'm scared of you. And I said that right up front. Oh, and I go, I know you're 80 or however old you people are. I said, but you're throwing stuff. I said, you're dancing. You have more energy than people I've seen. I said, the lady who greets me sounds like, she's the cousin to the Godfather. I said, I don't know who you people are. And because I did that and just said my true feelings, right, they were fine. And usually that's what I find. If I'm nervous, I just tell them. I go, look, I'm in a temple. I'm a Catholic girl. You thought I was Jewish. You were wrong. I don't have any Jewish jokes or whatever. I will literally just say what I feel. And usually when I speak from my heart, then people are okay.
Yeah, I just came back from San Diego where I performed, and it was for a convention. And you know what those are like. Everything's got to be so milquetoast. Is it easier today, Fran, for females to break into comedy than it was when you first got started? Because I know the ceiling was a little closed and it was mostly male comics that got the prime time, and even open mic nights, you guys were pushed to the back of the line. Is it easier today for females, or does it just matter on your particular talent?
I know people concentrate on all that stuff. I never do. Mm-hmm. I've had people introduce me. Oh, here's a girl. She's too pretty to be funny. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. You know what? I don't do quote unquote female type jokes. I just do things that I think are funny. And I think that that's just the way that I look at it. So is it easier? Yeah, I guess, people get used to things and, people accept more things as time goes on. But I try never to just look at that stuff. I just always go, this is what I need to do. I need to be funny. They need to laugh. The owner needs to be happy. I need to get paid. And I just look at it like that.
Well, who are your heroes? Who are the people you grew up admiring that helped mold you to who you are today?
My mom and dad.
Yeah.
I didn't have oh wow, what I love George Carlin, I love Joan Rivers, but that was not my I wouldn't say I love them as stand-ups and stuff like that. But I didn't really. My mom and dad were the ones who were teaching me, who to be, how to grow up, and even though my dad was in jail at one point in time, I wrote a book about it, Almost a Wise Guy. But there were still. It's just principles that they taught me, and the nothing impossible and stuff like that. So those were my heroes.
I would think that this would be something you'd be interested to hear. Vicky and I were talking about you one night, and Vicky said, quote unquote, Fran is a people pleaser. She likes to make everybody around her feel welcome and happy. And are you okay? Are you fine? Are you comfortable? So is that who Fran is inside? A people pleaser, someone who wants to make people feel happy?
I absolutely love making people feel happy. I wouldn't people please to the point of my own detriment, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, if I feel that something's wrong, I wouldn't just agree with it. But yes, I actually have a birthday party every year, and my party is always like wild, like in the sense of it's no drinking, but it's like I have a 150-foot slide. I'll have sumo wrestling. I'll have teaching people how to eat fire. Had a bungee, well, not bungee cord jump, but at the last party I had llamas. And people are like, what can we bring you as gifts? And I'm like, buy a book of mine. Yeah, I'm fine. I get the biggest kick out of watching them all of a sudden go, Fran, there's a llama at your door. And I just get the biggest kick out of that. I just love surprising people, good surprises. I love making people happy and motivated. Those are the two things I love the most.
Yeah, there's a llama at your door, and tomorrow he's my new sweater.
Not nice.
How did you become the fastest talking woman according to the Guinness Book of World Records?
Well, I was working at a radio station, WBLS-FM in New York, and I was writing comedy for them. And so kidding around one day, I said, I could do this really cool Mae West impression, but I called the character Junice, Mae West's long-lost sister. So all of a sudden, the DJ throws the weather and traffic copy at me. I look up and, in radio, when the red tally light comes on, you had to, start speaking. So I was like, something the weather and traffic is. And in the 30 seconds I happened to do it, a lady from the Daily News was listening. And she said, I'm doing Australian weather and traffic people. How long you been doing it? So I wasn't going to tell her, 30 seconds. So I was like, I've been doing it a while. So she's like, well, what are you planning on doing next? And I didn't have a next, but I had a lady from the Daily News. So I was like, I'm thinking of breaking a world record. And she's like, really, for what? But I didn't have a for what. So I said, well, I can't tell you, it'll jinx it. She goes, well, listen, the article has to go in by 6 o'clock today. If you decide you want to let me know, give me a call. So I run out. I buy a Guinness book. I start looking through it. I'm like, oh, my God, what record can I do? Bungee cord. I start looking through all these things, and I'm fast talking. People always say that I talk fast. But I had no clue, So it was late. I call up, the lady, Dinah Prince, and I was like, all right, I'll tell you, I'm thinking of breaking the record for fast talking. So she's like, what's the record at? And I'm literally looking in the book. I'm going, the record is 552 words a minute. And she's like, well, what are you at? And I was like, 550. I said, those last two words are a killer. So she prints it. I didn't know what else to say. So she prints it in the paper. And the very next day, the Larry King Live people call me up and ask me to go on the show and break the record. Yes. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know who Larry King was.
What?
All I heard was, he was like new to TV. So I heard cable. So I'm like, well, is this a porn thing? And she's like, honey, no, this is a national show. I was like, what if I don't break the record? She goes, Larry doesn't care whether you break it or not. He just cares that you try it on the show first. So I called up Guinness, said, what do you have to do? They said something from Shakespeare or the Bible, and me and Shakespeare never got along, so I had a prayer from the Bible that my mom had taught me. So for 6 hours, I'm over there, he didn't all sing, praise to the Most High, I'm practicing over and over again. And then when I went on the show, at that point, I broke the record doing 585 words a minute, and then I rebroke it at the Guinness Museum in Vegas doing 603.32 words in 54.2 seconds, which comes out to about 11 words a second.
Right. You don't know this, of course. I don't think I even have ever told you this in the years we've been friends, but when I was in college, I interned at WIOD for Larry King.
Oh, really? No,
yeah,
I did not know that.
I was one of his interns from the university, and I used to intern for him. I used to do overnights, 12 at night till 6 in the morning, and down in Miami, which is where he kind of began his radio career and almost ended it too. But I was an intern of his for years and years.
Wow. So then you really knew him then, right?
Oh, did I know Larry King? As a matter of fact, we both got in trouble for something that I did once on the air, or told him to. I suggested it at 5:58 and a half, 5:58 and 30. he would be coming to the end of the program, and he'd talk about what's going to happen in tomorrow. We're now going to be going to the Florida Agricultural Report, news at the top of the hour. Then Mike Ranieri will join you after the news. And he got tired of saying that one morning, and he said to me after we got off the air, he said, I'm so tired of saying that. I wonder if I could shorten it down. And I said, yeah, why don't you just say coming up is the news at the top of the hour, Mike Ranieri, and before that, here's Up Your Plants. So I didn't think anything of it, and we went home the next morning. We get to the same thing, 5 to 8:30, and he starts his spiel, and he does the Mike Ranieri coming up, the news, and now here's Up Your Plants from the University of Florida. And boy, did we get in trouble. The program director just happened to be there that morning, that early, and boy, Larry took the credit for it, but the program director looked at me and said, no, this sounds more like Gary than it does you.
Wow.
Because
that says a lot for his character, trying to take the credit, taking the blunt end of it.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He got himself into a little trouble, but he also knew my uncle, who was, as you know, a comic on Miami Beach forever, Tubby Boots. And,
right.
So,
famous Tubby Boots, yes.
The famous Tubby Boots, cleaner than he ever was dirty, and he was always known for being dirty. I want to get to a book that didn't break my heart, but it made my heart cry a little bit inside, and it gave me an awful lot of joy when I read it. And I just read it again in order to prepare for this show because I didn't want to miss anything. And I know coming up this the 12th, this Friday, you've got a Valentine's celebration of love, light, and laughter. And, of course, the book Hopeville, The City of Light, is included in here. But I want to give everybody an opportunity to understand how this book came about. And it came to you, a voice came to you, what voice we don't know, at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I want you to take it from there until the crazy place that you decided to sit down and start writing this book.
Okay. So, as you know, like I've said, I've written 18 books, and most of them, all of them were conscious choices. I'm going to write this. Well, one morning, it was an April morning, this back in 2004, it's 4 o'clock, I hear a voice say, Fran, get up. You got to write this book. So I'm thinking I'm dreaming. So I'm like, in my dream, going, wow, this is a weird dream. And the voice keeps being persistent, like, Fran, get up. You got to write this book. So then I was like, oh, this is really weird. So I wasn't sure if I was awake or dreaming, but I turn on the light. And I look around, and I don't see anybody. I don't hear anything. So I turn on the light, go back to sleep, and again I hear, Fran, you got to get up. You got to write this book. It's got a message that will help the world. And so I turn on the light again. I'm like, okay, I am hearing a voice. I don't know whether you're male or female. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not writing a book at 4 o'clock in the morning. Don't mean to be rude, but I don't know who you are. And if this is a dream, it's a really weird one. And the voice starts saying, get a pen and paper. You need to write down the title. So as a writer, you always sleep with a pen and paper next to you.
Right.
So I write down Hopeville, the City of Light. And then I said, okay, I'm going to sleep. I got to get up in the morning. And it says, you have to get this book out to the world. So next morning, I take my son to school, my mom to work, and my car had to be fixed. So I drive the car to this locksmith shop that was going to be fixing the car, and I take my computer, and I was working at the time on my book, Adrenaline Adventures, and I was doing a shark chapter. And I've never had writer's block in my life. So I say to the guy, hey, is it okay if you have like a little desk space or somewhere I could set up my laptop and I could write while you guys are fixing my car? So they put me in the back in their shop. And because they knew, my boyfriend, so it wasn't like, like I was sticking some stranger, so they stick me in the back. And they're working. I mean, it's loud. They're working. And I go to type on the computer and my chapter on sharks. And physically, my hands cannot type. And I'm like going, okay, this is really weird. I don't understand. So I go to type again, and I can't. And I'm like, great. What am I going to do? Sit here for 3 hours on one deadline and not do anything? So I'm getting very frustrated. I'm looking around the people, the shop, everybody's doing their thing. And then I'm like, all right, what was that name of that book? So I had the title like in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So I grab it out, and I type the words, Hopeville, the City of Light. Yeah. That was the last thing I remember doing. When I typed that, I just remember typing, I couldn't tell you what I was doing at the time. And I remember typing the words "the end" and then hearing the guy say, "Fran, your car is ready." And then I looked at him, and then he goes, "Okay, that was weird." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You didn't move. You didn't look like you were breathing. You didn't drink water. You didn't go to the bathroom. You just sat there for 3 hours like a zombie, just typing." I was like, "I think I wrote a book." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "I have no idea what's on those pages." So because I was in the middle of Adrenaline Adventures, I didn't look at the book for a couple of weeks, and then I was like, I better take a look at this and see if it even makes sense. So I figured it wasn't going to, but I looked at it, and it was a story about a little boy that always gets bullied, a widowed mother who's trying to make ends meet, an old man who feels like no one listens to him anymore, and a successful businessman who gave up everything to build his business. And they're discouraged with life, and they are looking like, what's the meaning of life? Is this it? Why are people so mean? I can't trust it. And they all say a prayer that night, and an angel of light comes to them and basically guides them to what they need to do to be happy. But they each are like, "Well, I'm not sure. I'm just a little boy. I'm just a widowed mother." Right. And they're each not sure. But she's saying to them, "If you do this, it'll have a domino effect, and it'll affect everybody in the town." And they do this in a very unique way, and it winds up, there's challenges, and it winds up transforming, the town. Right. So the thing is, when I wrote the book initially, I still just left it and didn't do anything with it. Right. And then afterwards, I started feeling like all guilty. I'm like, you know what? What happens if I die and go to heaven and God goes, "Hey, I gave you a book. What? Don't do anything with it." And then I'm stuck, like sweeping heaven for the rest of my life because I didn't listen. So I was like, I better do something. So back then, I, decided that I would take, for some reason, I kept hearing in my head the date of December 8th. Now, that meant nothing to me. I just heard that date. And everything surrounding this book, every time I put any energy towards moving the book forward, which is what I was told I need to do to get the message out to the world, anytime I do it, I get people coming up and saying, "Hey, I was told I was supposed to help you." So I have this sort of December 8th in my head, and this lady comes up to me at a function. It was a McDonald's fundraiser function. She goes, "I know this is weird, and I just met you, but I have this thing that I'm supposed to help you." I go, "Help me what?" She goes, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." And we started talking, and then I happened to mention Hope Film. I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking of letting the book go out on December 8th. And she goes, "You know what December 8th is?" And I'm like, "No." She goes, "That's the day we pay homage to Mother Mary." I'm like, "Oh, didn't know that." And so it's always things like this. But when I made up the copies of the book, 50 copies sold in one day. Yeah. And then I let it sit there again. And then I didn't do anything with it until 2013 when I decided, all right, you know what? Maybe I should make this an ebook. So I make it an ebook, and I decide, all right, you know what? I'm going to let everybody know that I'm selling it as an ebook, and that it's got a message, blah blah blah. July 26, 2013, at 11:30 p.m. at night, that book, I launched it as an ebook. It was number 129,851 on the list. By the next morning, it rose to number 7,594, and by midnight that night, it hit number 11 on Amazon.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this is what I mean. Any time I put any energy towards the book, this type of things happen. And the book it's like if you're feeling down, Hope Phil has the answer of how to get out of that. If you feel you need passion in your life, it shows you that. If your life is good but you're still not happy with your life, what it does is it kind of illuminates your path through your own personal journey, but it has characters in it. The people in there, somebody could relate to each of the different characters. Yeah. And the funny thing is, someone said this the other day. I was doing a TV show about it, and the host had read the book, and he said, "Fran, your book, it's not just a book. It's more of a way of life. It's not a book you read once and then put down. It's something that it shows you principles." So now when I wrote the book, I left the story because I was scared to touch it. And then I actually spoke to the editor of Conversations with God. And this is another strange story of how that came about, because it was the last leg of this guy's tour. And he was saying, oh, we've been, through 40 states, and tonight, was our last night here in New York, and guess what? Tonight our editor's here. And I had said the night before, I want to speak to the editor, not the author. So when everybody ran over to get the author's signature, I went over to the publisher / editor, and I said, can I ask you a question? When you got that manuscript, did you edit it? And he just looked at me and said, how do you edit God? And then I was like, wow. So then I knew, do not touch the story. But what I did was, at the end of the book, I put 10 principles that you could, things that you could do on a daily basis that make you happy. And then I pulled out the 44 principles of hopeful. Now, the funny thing is, Gary, every time somebody reads a book or does a book, they keep pointing out things to me that I don't notice or know. Like, for example, someone said to me, do you realize that the L's in Hopeful on the cover of your book look like the number 11? And the thing is, I always say a prayer at 11:11 because I feel it's the only time that all the 11s are aligned. And then I found out that there's a lot of people that do that, and that there is a whole thing with the number being. So then someone said to me, well, do you realize the significance of number 11? I was like, I didn't know the numbers had a significance. And they said, yes, it means spiritual illumination, and it means balance in all the areas of your life. Then someone asked me, they said, why did you do 44 lessons? I said, I don't know. That was the number that it came out. It was 44 lessons. They said, well, do you know there's an angel 44? I go, what do you mean angel 44? What, like Agent 99? It was angel 23? I never knew the angels were numbered. What, God ran out of names? I mean, like, what does this mean? So I looked up. I was like, come on, there can be an angel 44. So I look it up, and sure enough, there's an angel 44, and the book is all about angels, the angel of light. If you look at the cover of the book, there's like an angel overlooking the town. And angel 44 is the angel of intuition and inner wisdom. And the message of angel 44 is that you always are surrounded by helpful, loving angels who wish to bring you peace and joy in your heart. And whenever you overcome obstacles, the angels will be there to assist you. But angels don't have to be like, woo, angels up in the air. An angel could be someone that just comes into your life at the right time and shows you, which is a lot of what happens in that story, because the story is told through parable. So it's just like these crazy things. So then in 2014, in 2013, I made it an ebook. And I don't know why I do this. I make it an ebook, then I just leave it. I don't do anything with it. So then in 2014, I said, this is ridiculous. Someone gave me this book, and, I'm not fulfilling what they asked me to do. So I said a prayer. This was a couple of days before my birthday. My birthday is July 29th. So this was like around, I don't remember what it was. It was like July 24th or whatever. And I said, all right, Mom, because at that point my mother had already passed. Her name was Rose. I was like, Mom, Mother Mary, whoever gave me this thing, can you please let me know how I'm supposed to get this message out to the world? Because I have no clue. So the next morning, Gary, and I am talking about the very next day, I am awoken by a friend of mine text messaging me saying, congratulations, you're in Metro News. I didn't even know what Metro News was. I didn't know it was like a famous newspaper in England. So then I'm like, what is he talking about? And then my boyfriend Steve's guy at work calls him and said, hey, tell Fran I just saw her on ABC News. And I'm like, that's impossible. I'm just laying here in bed. How is this even possible? So I text my son. I'm like, Spence, what is going on? Everybody's telling me congratulations. He goes, Mom, you have a video that just went viral. It's in Croatia, Scandinavia, Vietnam. He goes, it is in Britain. He goes, it is all over the world. I go, what video? I didn't put any video up. And what happened was, it was a video that I had done for someone at True TV 3 years prior. For some reason, that guy happened to look at the video the night before, and he told me, he was like, oh, never did anything with this. And he decided to put it up online, and for some reason the video went viral. And when it went viral, as the newspapers and Huffington Post and Daily and everybody started calling me, I said, can I also talk about my book, Hopeful? Because I figured that was the answer to the prayer of how it's going to get around the world. Some stations said yes. Some were just because the video going viral was one about me doing my fast talking. It had nothing to do with Hopeful. So some said yes. Some, were like, no, we would just want you to talk about, your fast talking, whatever. But enough people heard it, and all of a sudden I'm leaving for Korea, South Korea, the next day to do 17 shows in 10 days for the military.
Right.
And this lady tracks me down and says, I heard about your book on TV, on a show called Buzz 60, actually. And I bought the ebook, and I have to tell you, it's the only, my husband died 6 months ago, and it's the only book that gave me comfort. Are you thinking of making it into a softcover book? I said, no, ebook. She goes, I really would like to be able to hand the book. Not everybody does ebooks. Can you make a physical copy? So I kept hearing what that lady had said to me. So then I went out and made a softcover book. And then I decided that I wanted to give every soldier that is active in military a free copy of my ebook. So I just and so now, then I made a softcover book. And then just this month, this is what I mean. I keep leaving it, picking up. Just this month, I said, okay, this is ridiculous. So I made a website. It's called HopefulTheCityOfLight.com. And there's a button up there for military people. They have to provide their military address. They get a free copy of the book. And then all these miracles started happening, Gary. Like I recognized an email that someone had sent me from 3 years ago that I never answered. So I answered this guy from JTC Exchange. I go, hey, I realize it's a little late getting back to you on that email, but I'm really bad technology-wise. And now he and I are doing a partnership. Turns out he helps kids in schools that, the schools don't have a lot of money, and all about not being a victim, blah, blah, blah. And he has 3 schools. So we have a donate button through his nonprofit organization that we're trying to raise $5,000 so that we could get 500 books for free to the schools, because that's how much it would cost between shipping and everything.
What's the website, Fran? What's the website?
It's the name of the book, HopefulTheCityOfLight.com. And you'll see. And then someone else, a comic I know, Johnny Rizzo, he said, oh, Fran, guess what I'm doing? I'm creating these candles and blah, blah, blah. I go, candles? I go, could you put Hopeful City of Light on a candle? So now there's a candle that you could also order that has a prayer on the back of it, and it's a really cool prayer on the back of it, talking about kind of the principles of Hopeful, and the prayer is on my website as well. So it's just, and then all of a sudden I got asked to speak at a church, and that's this is going to be, well, I've spoken at a church before, but this is the first time I'm speaking about Hopeful the City of Light, and this is the one that you were talking about at the Alverson Memorial Church. If any of your listeners happen to be out in Greenwich, Connecticut, I'm doing it this Friday, February 12th from 7 to 8:30. But it's all about love, laughter, and light, which is what the message of Hopeful is. I mean, the thing is, I really believe everybody's put on the earth to be happy and fulfill our dreams, but many of us don't know how. We create our lives with our beliefs and our passion, and the secret lies within, but not everybody knows how to tap that secret. And that's what Hopeful does. It basically shows you how to, tap into the secrets.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. When I first read it, and of course, like I said, I reread it here recently the other day because I was bored to tears anyway with the football game, and I just remembered some of the things about it. But I also know that from everything that I've ever learned about you and love you dearly, and that you're one of those special people in my life. I felt as though my life, even though we don't talk as often as I'd like, but knowing you has made my life even more inspirational because it's made me want to get out there and do more and publicity-wise and keep moving forward. I mean, you and I are both friends on Facebook, but there's something about you, and Vicki and I were both talking about this once, and so is Jeanette. She agreed that there's something about you that's just really special, that God has given you all these wonderful and beautiful gifts. Before we go too far, because we got about 10, 15 minutes left, let's talk about some of the characters. I love the story in particular about the old man who felt as though he was a carpenter and his life was worthless. He just went through the daily drudgery of doing whatever he needed to do, and how this other gentleman brought a light into his life. Talk a little bit about the carpenter and the old man.
Well, I think it parallels a lot of what really happens in people's lives. Like somebody want to be a doctor or something, and they're all excited in the beginning, and then somehow they lose the light of what they want to do. So it's that particular section of the story is about a carpenter who has a shop, and it's doing all right, but and every day he goes in and he carves different things and does things for the townspeople, and as you read the book, you realize it has to do with a miraculous candle, and the candle shows people's inner light. So whereas, usually you just see it through somebody's eyes, in this instance, it's a candle that represents what their inner soul is feeling. And so the guy's doing it, doing his carpentry work, and then all of a sudden he slumps over, and the old man happens to stroll into his store. And this was one of the old men that had done the prayer to the angel. And he notices the carpenter slumped over, and he taps him and relights his light, because you have the ability to light anybody's light without losing energy from yourself. And so when he does, the carpenter, pops up, and the old man's like, well, what happened? And he's like, I just had this dream. I was in the most gorgeous shop, and everything there was finely crafted and down to the detail. And I would have loved to have a shop like that. And then finally I meet the shop owner, and he said, this is the you that could have been, or the you that can be. And he's like, well, what do you mean? He goes, you have this ability inside you, but you've just lost your passion along the way. But there's still time to regain that. It's never too late. And so when the old man lit his candle again, the carpenter had this renewed energy, knowing like, I can still create these masterpieces, and I really want to do that. So he wanted to get the old man in to help him, to do this. And the old man's like, well, but this is your dream, not mine, but I'll help you start it. Because ultimately the most satisfaction comes in when you create your own, dream. So the old man helps him clear out the shop, and then the guy starts creating these beautiful things. And each time he creates one thing more beautiful than the other. And then, of course, because now he has all the passion, now his store starts being success, because through a word of mouth, everybody sees these beautiful things. And instead of when they walk into his store, he's like, you want something? Oh, no, okay, fine. Now he's like, oh, look at this. Look at, and everybody, and it just spreads. And that's what can happen to people if they relight their dreams and don't think, oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too small, I'm too, give themselves all these limitations, because there are no limitations.
No, that's true. That's very true. By the way, EW, our producer and runner of this radio station and show, he's going to put all the information about Hopeville up on the station, on the website, so people can contact you that way as well.
Yeah, and I would love for your listeners, as they read the book, there's a spot where you could, if you're shy, you could just leave a written comment on the homepage. And if you're not shy, you go up to where it says video review, and literally you just click the button and you could do a review of the book, or just even, I just love to hear how it's changed people or affected people. What I notice a lot of times, people will buy the book and they'll come back and then buy 20 more books, and they want to give them as gifts, Valentine's Day. I mean, I'm not trying to do it for that. I'm doing it more seriously, because really, honestly, at $9.95 a book, I am not making like money. I'm just trying to cover the cost of the book. So I just really have been told to get the message out.
You're not going to be retiring anytime soon.
No, this is really, I was asked to do something. I was given this through a voice, and I am just trying to get the message out. So if one person just buys 2 books, keeps a book and gives one to a friend, do you know what I'm saying? And then tells them to do the same thing. And someone told me something that they were doing that I thought was really cool. This one lady bought a whole bunch of copies of the books, but initially when she did, she lent out her book, and her friend said to her, why don't you write in the back cover what you got out of the book? And everybody you lend it to or everybody you give the book to, they put their comment. So then everybody reading it then will have not only the book, but what the people that read it got out of their books. So that's where I said, oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. That's why I'm asking people to leave comments on the website so that people can see how it affected everybody. And what's interesting is look, Gary, when I got this, honestly, at 4:00 in the morning, I'm like, what, I need to go to Creemore? What is this? I got to go to a mental institution? I'm hearing voices now. I'm going to start telling people this. But what really started happening is that corporations, Miller Coors and Pfizer came to me and bought books for their team building. Felt that corporations could get a benefit out of it because it's kind of like that Who Moved My Cheese? There was a book like that because it's told in parables, so it's not like heavy. The whole book is like 90 pages. You could literally read the book in how long did it take you to read it, Gary?
I think the first time it took me a couple of hours because I was getting interrupted by Furball. You know how I love my little kitties. And then the other day I just started to read it, and because I have it on here, I have it on, as my PDF file in the computer. I don't know. I think it took me maybe an hour and a half.
Exactly. Maybe, and it's a real short read. And here's the other thing. As of Valentine's Day, actually tomorrow, I'm picking up the CDs. I actually put it on a CD. I do all the different characters. Mm-hmm. Originally, I was just going to read it straight, but then as I was reading it, I was like, oh, I'll do the little boy voice and the, and the old man voice. So CDs will be available as of Valentine's Day.
Oh, I thought I would be perfectly cast as the old man myself.
Oh, I hear that. Yes. Darn it. See, this is what happens when I get excited and rush ahead and do it myself.
Anyway, I know that you have certain principles that you have lived by in your life. Gratitude, keep people smiling, and laughter. Talk about those three.
Yes. And, well, people always say that. Be thankful for everything that you have, right? But we take that for granted sometimes. And the thing is, if every day you woke up and just said one thing that you were grateful for, but you can't say, the way that I look at it, you can't say the same thing every day because then it becomes rote. So, when every morning you think of something before you get out of bed, because then that means you're starting the day by being grateful. And there's something very different than when you get up and you're really happy about things than if you get up and you're like, oh, God, another day. If you started the day with, wow, I am so lucky to be, living in living in this house. I'm so lucky to have the boyfriend that I have, or I'm blessed to have the son that I have, or whatever thing that you're grateful for. I'm glad I didn't catch a cold on the plane when everybody else was sick, anything, whatever. Right. But if you have that attitude of gratitude, and if you did it every day, there'd be 365 things that you'd be grateful for in a year. And, that adds up, and then that makes you feel like what a great life I'm living, instead of looking at the bad stuff. Right. The bad stuff comes to pass anyway. And then smiling. You think of it so simple, such a simple thing. What energy does it take? And sometimes I do this, like if I'm in the car and I'm driving, and then, and then I realize, wow, I'm not smiling. And then I smile, you can feel the difference in your physiology just by smiling. Because it's really hard to be mad when you're smiling. Like you try to smile, unless you're like the Joker from Batman or something where you have a painted on smile, but you know what I mean? But it's really hard to be upset when you're smiling. And the thing is, if you're within, like I always say, like a 10-foot rule, if you're within 10 feet of somebody, you just look at them in the eyes and smile. And sometimes that simple smile can make the recipient feel wholly different about the way that they are during the day. Or maybe it just gives them like, wow, there are nice people in the world, and you could do it in a crowded city. You could sitting across from somebody. You could do it in traffic, And the thing is, New Yorkers have this reputation that they're such, angry people, such in a rush. But I tell you, I smile at people all the time, and they smile back.
Yes.
And that was the great. And I know you asked me about another one. I wasn't sure. What was the third one you asked me?
And I know you like all comedians and all people that are funny. I like to bring a little laughter into someone's life, and I know you do too. And laughter, to me, like you discussed earlier about the young lady that laughter cures. It does. When you laugh and you're happy, it kind of pushes aside some of the sorrow in your life that every day brings.
It does. I got to tell you something. Sometimes you can just laugh, and you get into a laughing fit, and you don't even have to have something to laugh at now. But if you remember back, like for example, this happened the other day. So the other day, I'm meeting a friend that I haven't seen in 20. It was in 20 years. So we were talking about, we haven't seen each other, blah blah blah, since we were teenagers. And so, he goes, "Well, you look the same, but I look different." And I go, well, why not? And he goes, yeah, I gained 100 pounds. I lost my hair. And I didn't know what to say. So I went, well, your voice is the same. And he just goes, thanks a lot. And I was realizing afterwards, so I told a friend of mine that, and for some reason he found it so funny that he was laughing hysterically. Then his laughter made me laugh, and we couldn't stop laughing for like 10 minutes in the car. So today it was funny because I was just doing something, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I got to call that guy, and blah, blah, blah. And then I started thinking about the line I said, and I started laughing because I just triggered the memory of when I was laughing. So it's not necessarily that you have to go look up a joke or something. You could just trigger a happy memory that when you were laughing, and then that could bring up that feeling again.
Would you believe the hour is gone by?
Oh, really? Already? Wow, that was quick.
She is Fran Capo. She is one of the most darling women that I've ever known in my life. If she wasn't engaged, I'd chase her, but I'd have a heart attack doing it. Please go over, if you're going to be on Friday night anywhere near Greenwich, the Alberson Memorial Church, please go and see Valentine's Celebration of Love, Light, and Laughter. It's all about the book, Hopeville, the City of Light. She is Fran Capo. She is great. You just go to her website, francapo.com, and you can get all the information there. Also go to hopevillethecityoflight.com. And Fran, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on the Express. I'm going to call you just a few minutes as soon as I get off the air. And let me just say to everybody, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to be with us next week. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got a few guests booked, but join me on Facebook at Gary Allen or at youtube.com, Gary Allen The Express, if you want to hear any of my past shows. And on behalf of all of us here at TMV Cafe, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day. And God bless you all. And, until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.